pay attention to the doors that we open over the course of the demo. We're pushing hard for best doors in an RPG. Our artists really love their doors, seriously. So here we've entered the ruin of Earl Tusk, and you see we're outfitted differently now. We're dressed up as a mage. We have mage gear, mage abilities, mage weapons, and you're going to see a very different combat experience with this. Now we've become a mage instead of a warrior. You may notice at this point there's something about RPGs I haven't talked about yet, and that's character class. There's a good reason for that. Reckoning handles character class very differently than any RPG before, and part of that ties into the story. So you saw at the beginning, we've died and been brought back to life. That's a pretty big deal in and of itself, but it also has some interesting side effects. Everyone in the world of Amalur has a very specific fate, a destiny that ultimately ends in death. Because you have come back from death, you have no fate, you have no destiny. You are torn free from the tapestry of fate and can choose your own destiny for that reason. And in the game of Reckoning, your destiny is essentially your class. So in most RPGs, you start the game off, you have to immediately up front decide what class you're going to be, the single biggest gameplay decision you'll ever make. And I hope you make a good one, because 50 hours down the road, you'll have to be enjoying that experience. We really didn't want to do that with Reckoning. We wanted to let you make more informed decisions. So instead of that approach, we let you, over the course of the tutorial, which you saw a little bit of earlier, try each of the major playstyles in the game, get a feel for them. When the tutorial's over, you level up for the first time, and that's when you get your first destiny. We'll see how that works now. I really, really love the Destiny system, so if I ramble, I apologize. So the way it works is this. You level up, you get some points to spend in non-combat skills and your abilities. And abilities are mostly combat-focused things. As you put points into, say, the sorcery tree, we have 3 different ability trees, might, finesse, and sorcery. They're more or less different play styles. Put some points in there, and I unlock cool stuff. Passive abilities, active spells I can fire off, whatever. And in addition to that, I'm getting points in sorcery itself. I get so many points in sorcery, I unlock a mage-themed destiny. The first one, I believe, is Acolyte. So I get that destiny, and I embrace it or equip it. It becomes my class. From that point forward, until I change it, I'm a mage. And I get some combat bonuses, I get some different buffs that make me more effective playing as a mage. I keep dumping points. As I level up, I keep dumping more and more points into sorcery. I'll become a more and more badass mage. I'll become a warlock, an archmage, and unlock greater and greater destinies. That's cool, and it's very much an option. Now, in most RPGs, the most effective way to play, if you're an RPG fan, you all know this, the most effective way to play, don't be a jack of all trades. Specialize, focus, be a mage who is 100% fire damage all the time. That's what you do. And that is an option in Reckoning. That is a totally viable way to build a character, but it's not your only option. We can make hybrid characters, any number of different hybrid characters. For instance, if Joe starts the game off, puts some points in sorcery, and then he wants to try being not sucky with his kite shield, he might put some points into might, into the skillful defense ability. As soon as you start doing that, you start unlocking hybrid destinies, like Crusader is an example of one of our fighter mages, or Battle Mage, another good example. And those give you bonuses to that specific play style. And as designers, we look at the game, we do a lot of testing, we see what does and doesn't work for that build, and we buff wherever you're particularly weak, so that each and every possible build you might want to create is viable to do in combat. Now, as you move forward, you're going to see one of the interesting things about Destinies. Destinies don't just give you buffs. They can change even some of the core mechanics of the game. For instance, as Joe's been playing through the demo so far, he's been a warrior, and as things try to attack him, he's done a lot of rolling out of the way. It's sort of his defensive maneuver. Well, mages don't roll. Mages teleport. Now, the teleport, aside from just looking and feeling cool, is functionally different from a roll, because it actually does traverse the space without going through the area in between. Because of this, you can hop through an enemy and then use certain attacks that are more effective from behind once you're there. Really cool ways to combo. Now, as we move forward, you're going to notice the mage is, in some ways, like the warrior. A mage traditionally in an RPG, he's a glass cannon. He can do a lot of damage, but if he gets up close and personal, he's going to become very sad very fast. Now, the mage in Reckoning is more fragile than the warrior, but we've given you a lot of tools and abilities to let you either navigate yourself around the field or the enemies to make it viable for you to get in and out of that rough and tumble combat experience. You'll also see, as Joe uses one of the mage weapons here, the Frost Staff, that the mage weapons have just as much depth and flexibility as things like the sword or the hammer. The same number of special attacks and unlockables and just cool things you can do to get through the fight, as well as, of course, a suite of their own abilities. We'll see that now. Now, having dispatched these kobolds, it's a good time to stop and look around the environment a little bit. As I mentioned, this is an Arathi ruin. It's very, very old. And one of the interesting things about it is at one time they housed an entire civilization down here. And here's a case where, as you look around, you can see our environment artists have made this huge labyrinthine experience so that even indoors, you get a sense of scale and scope and just how big the world is. And it helps sell that fiction, helps sell that there was an awful lot of people down here at one time. And that's, again, trying to make the world feel real as RA has really pushed hard. Before the next fight, this may also be a good time to point out, especially to those of you who played Oblivion, no, we do not auto-level our enemies. We do not do that. The way it works, we have a very specific level range for each area, which gives you a little bit of give and take, depending on what your level is when you go there. But it sets it at that point, and it's in a tightly contained range. So if, say, you went into this dungeon and every enemy was level 5 and they kicked your ass, you could level up, come back later, they would still be level 5, and you can wreak your holy vengeance. So a couple things to point out before the next fight. First is that Joe is, as I mentioned, our lead combat designer, and he plays fighting games, and we've gone through this demo repeatedly, so he's very, very good at it. So if it looks a little easy as he's going through, it's a little misleading. Joe is just that good. Also, you're about to see another of our mage weapons. This is probably my favorite weapon class in the game. It is very cool. It is called the Chakram. It's a pair of razor-edged discs imbued with elemental power. And like the staff we have in our back here, they come in different elemental varieties, which can suit a different build of mage. And they're really cool, not just because they look neat and they're fun to use, but also because they really suit the mage playstyle. For instance, as you watch the fight, you'll see there's a delayed special where you delay your timing between attacks, and you hurl yourself back from the enemy, buying you time to get off a quick spell. There's a charge special that'll actually do a wide ring around the room with the chakrams, not doing a lot of damage, but knocking down the enemies, buying you time to get off a big AoE attack. We'll see that now. Love that. Look at that. God, I love the chakrams. All right, so as we move into the next room, you're going to see something else about the mage. With the mage, you expect to have a big toolkit, lots of different powers and abilities at your disposal. And here, Reckoning doesn't disappoint. But one of the ones we like a lot, because it's very tactical and strategic in its use, is called Mark of Flame. You're going to see that in a second. Mark of Flame lets you wade into a fight, tag individual enemies with a magical mark or glyph, and then at your convenience, you can hold down the button and blow up everyone who has that mark on them. It'll hurt them and also damage other guys near them, which, especially combined with the mage's teleport, lets you be really strategic in how you move around the field and use the enemies to your advantage. Let's watch. See? You see? As you move forward here, you're going to see one of the enemies you saw earlier in the demo, assassins. And you'll notice that although we're not the same character we were, their behavior is, well, basically you'll see that the fight is very different with a higher level mage versus a lower level warrior. You're also going to see the way the mage block works, which is like the kite shield that the warrior has, not as defensive, but when he parries, he's going to set enemies on fire. You may also notice here in the future fights that just like the melee weapons, you can seamlessly switch between that staff and the chakrams in the middle of attack chains. Okay, one more door. Wait for it. Now, something you come to expect from a mage in an RPG is that high-level, high-damage AoE spell where you rain hellfire from the sky and clear out a room. We'd hate to disappoint, so we're going to show you Meteor. So now we're entering into the last room of the demo, and there's a couple cool things to see here. First is that, as I mentioned, this is an Arathi ruin, and a little bit of that history shows through here. Despite the millennia that separate us from when it was abandoned, you see the beating magical heart of the ruin is still very much well. Also, you're going to see another enemy type just up ahead, the Prismeer Troll. Now, the Troll isn't a full-scale boss monster. Actually, it's like a variation of this guy right here. Not a full-scale boss monster, but is bigger than the other enemies you've been seeing thus far in the demo. A lot more weight and heft, and you're going to feel a difference in pacing to the fight as Joe battles this guy. With the troll down and Joe healed up, we're going to leave this room behind and show you the one last piece of the demo.